Hello there. Good evening. Tonight I will talk a little bit about more COVID and also, more specifically, uh, Bonnie Henry. Um, and to a lesser extent, Theresa Tam, Chief Medical Officer, something or other. I gotta be careful because it is stepping on eggshells here, really. Yeah, because there's a fair amount of people who watch my videos who already don't like me and want any excuse to, be assholes to me. So, I gotta pick my words carefully. And since I always do my videos off the top of my head, sometimes I don't always use the best words for things. But anyway, uh, recently it has come about that Bonnie Henry had addressed that some people were writing her nasty letters and giving her very bad phone calls of what she described as threatening. Um, well, there's many things to understand. Number one, anything important on the television that somebody is doing, they automatically will get hateful messages. That's how media works. It doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're saying. You're in a TV show, a commercial, um, talking about a pandemic, the prime minister, whatever. There's always going to be someone who has a twisted, complicated reason for not only disliking you, but having an intense anger towards you. Uh, that's, you know, more in the inner crust, I should say, because people, go about their working day lives and, aren't really part of any significant organization, especially any free thinking think tanks. They'll have petty reasons for not liking or disliking persons on television. Um, and usually it equates to nothing. They usually won't invest too much intellectual energy into the subject. They'll simply be discouraged from learning anything from it. And occasionally they'll say something negative. However, that doesn't affect people like Bonnie Henry. I don't know how much money she has, but she certainly has a lot more of it now. Um, and she does have security detail. I mean, this is a very, important subject in this nation as well as the world. Uh, that is part of the package of going on to television. She already knew that was what was going to happen before she started. So, a few months into it, saying it in kind of a small story is something she would have known months, years before she ever took center stage and was on television talking about the pandemic, of which they don't say very much. They say very little. It's always the same messages over and over again. The ones on the television or on social media. Oh, this week the cases went up, blah, blah, blah. We're still working on a vaccine, but we're expecting a second wave. The normal kind of bullshit. Uh, there is a reason why public health officials are disliked and even outright hated. Um, because they do bad things to people, and to animals as well. I mean, the pharmaceutical industry, they torture animals. That's what they do, and it's not just lab mice or rats. It's a very common misconception that it's always lab mice and lab rats that are tested on. Yes, they are tested on for pharmaceutical purposes, but so are other animals, animals that people actually do not consider vermin. Like rabbits. Rabbits do not get it good. And basically, it's Auschwitz for them in pharmaceutical companies. There's no escape, and no one's coming to help them. And for years and years, it was the most abusive, sadistic people, vile human beings who were in the pharmaceutical industry. And in order for them to continue this cycle of abuse and not have it affect their mood setting, like put them into depression after all the horrible things they've done, they actually trained them to kind of at least be benign about what they're doing, but, in a lot of cases actually enjoy what they're doing. Because there are stories of people who worked in the meat industry who became so disgusted with what they were doing that they stopped working in the meat industry. However, that doesn't make things very useful for the pharmaceutical industry because they need people with experience. They need people who get the job done and aren't going to be bogged down by, human emotion. There will come a day when they're using, monkeys and baboons on a more larger scale. There are a lot of animal rights groups that try to stop that, but with all this fear-mongering, particularly with this virus, legislation will be pushed forward so that they can be able to test on larger animals with more complex immune systems. And, like I said about rabbits, they're cute and cuddly, and a lot of people really like them. And, they were probably used just as much as mice and rats, which some people really don't like because they got this nasty image of them. It's a job that has to be done, but it does garner disapproval and dislike of people who experiment on animals, and rightfully so. I understand that these things they need to be created. Like a vaccination for COVID-19 has to be made. I am against the false image of Bonnie Henry and how her demeanor and she's benevolent and all this sort of stuff, which the media is really trying to focus hard. And there are a lot of pickle mush heads out there. They go, oh, isn't that wonderful? People who lost their marbles years ago, or old seniors going, oh, how wonderful. Bonnie Henry's going to solve everything, isn't she? In reality, she's a fraud and I don't know, probably very, very nasty person. And I mean, that's one aspect as to why somebody like Bonnie Henry would be disliked. There are many other reasons as well. I mean, like I've been saying, that she has full intentions on testing these vaccinations on human beings. I'm fairly certain that they already do that. in the deep recesses of mental asylums and other places where they can gather human hosts to do all kinds of horrible things to them. And I mean, also, I have a bit of a personal reason for disliking Bonnie Henry. And I use the word dislike because there's a difference between not liking something and disliking something. Not liking means you're neutral, probably borderlining, disliking, but disliking means you dislike it. It's more significant. It's more of a negative rather than a neutral. And it's not for anything that Bonnie Henry's done personally. However, it is the mindset, because you might have noted in some of my videos where I was talking about how I've had a sore throat for 7 years. It's not actually a complicated story. They gave me medication that gave me a sore throat. They kept telling me it was stomach acid caused by alcohol consumption, when it was really their medication. They refused to treat this problem. It's been 7 years. They may never treat it. And they used the justification for doing it, going, well, he's a bad guy. He's going to do bad things. And they don't have a shred of proof of that, other than the fact that they've already started this test and they can't go back now. Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, even if Bonnie Henry had, let's say she had nothing to do with this particular experiment, like she wasn't involved in it at all, and probably wasn't. There's all kinds of experiments and testings and things like that she could have been doing. Her medical opinion would be, too bad for this guy, this medication, and which is essentially abuse, could help society, because there are a lot of people who do misbehave when they drink alcohol and have anger management issues, and those kind of they gather quicker when someone has been drinking alcohol. And her opinion would be short-term pain for people who need to stop drinking, and it's better for society. Therefore, a few test subjects that were not bad people getting the 3rd degree is not a big deal. That was a bit of a sloppy way to say it, but essentially, that would be her medical opinion. And obviously that contradicts, what I would think about it, which was, I had a sore throat for 7 fucking years. Fuck you and your paranoia. Because what's to stop them from, imposing that on everyone, saying everyone who drinks alcohol might have borderline anger management issues. And I am a person where I do have an outlet for my anger. And most people, almost all people, get angry. You get angry, and there's situations where you get angry. That's part of being human. Anyway, I phone up a phone number I shouldn't phone up, and I give them the 3rd degree myself and tell them exactly what I think about them. Because I didn't enjoy having a sore throat for 7 years. I didn't enjoy being treated like trash for 7 years. I didn't enjoy a lot of the things to do with the medications I had to take. And I don't see a problem with that. In fact, fuck them. Call them a bunch of names. Make them feel uncomfortable. That's what they deserve. I wouldn't have to do that if they didn't keep giving me reasons to be angry. And that's what people like Bonnie Henry do. They're passive aggressive, and they inhibit people from questioning them, from disagreeing with them. Because they say we live in a free society where you're allowed to have your own opinions, but that ain't the truth. If somebody doesn't want to hear your opinions, then they silence you. You never get the chance to speak, and they do what they do. And Bonnie Henry, she didn't want to listen to bad messages on her answering machine or anything like that. She wouldn't have to, except for it's done by people in the inner workings, in the inner crust of the social network that she is a part of as a bureaucrat. So I certainly wouldn't use the language that some people may have used against Bonnie Henry. I don't even know what it is. I only looked up the article real quick. That's no reason to put me in the same category as a bunch of other people, which is what they like to do. They like to generalize things. And then when you generalize them saying, well, all doctors and bureaucrats are all cunts, then they use it as an excuse to get offended and storm off. And it's like, no, you are a cunt. And if you don't want to listen to me calling you a cunt, you avoiding me does not negate the fact that you're a cunt, and I still think that you're a cunt. And that's the mentality a lot of people have. They go, okay, they've ran away from the situation, but that doesn't change what that person thinks. And because it does get to a point where you're simply not going to change someone's mind no matter how hard you try. They'll never willingly change their mind. I will never willingly change my mind about alcohol. So what if other people have done bad things while they've been drunk? That's not me. You can't generalize me because I drink alcohol, which is a similar thing that they did. That's unfair, in my opinion. I may as well, call her all the horrible things that are associated with being a public health official and all the bad things she does. But, that'd be speaking some truth there for a little bit. And I don't like that. They only like their version of events. Yeah, it's a very complicated subject. I know that sometimes being ignorant is bliss. However, I strongly disagree with that because that enables people like Bonnie Henry to continue doing bad things and getting away with it. So it doesn't matter if she has a pleasant demeanor. If she turns around and does horrible things, it doesn't matter what her demeanor is for the 5 minutes she's up on television or, half an hour or however long her things are. Anyone could put on a face for that long. It doesn't negate the fact that she's a hideous, disgusting person. And her soul is rotten it's rotten to the core is what it is. So no, I don't really approve of people saying, whatever the things they were saying to her, because those types of people would say those kinds of things to me too for my position on certain subjects. So I don't want to be like one of those type of people, but I would like for people who do bad things not to take the sanctimonious light and show people who you really are. Stop being the hypocrite, porcelain face, a fake, a fraud. I don't want to walk this world blind, deaf, and stupid. I mean, there are a lot of people that want to put people in their place, and she's one of those type of people. There's other ways to, to go about things, more appropriate ways, so that Bonnie Henry, she gets tarred and feathered at the end of the day. Because she's not a good person and she's not doing a particularly good job. Some people are willing to believe what she has to say because she has something of a demeanor to her that's suited to what they enjoy seeing in a person. Don't ask me what that is, because I don't like her. I dislike her. Yeah, with all that being said, there are a lot of really nasty people out there. And if you stop giving people reasons to be nasty and mean, then perhaps someday they won't be nasty and mean. And like I said about myself, before, where I phone up a number and I give somebody a bunch of, I swear at them. Well, if you didn't do a bunch of things that really piss me off, then maybe I wouldn't be doing that. Yeah, a little food for thought, per se. Think I'll trail this video off here, and we'll investigate this subject a little bit further, I suppose, if I can even be bothered. I'm tired about COVID-19, to be honest with you. Anyways, good night, and cheers.